The stars looked different from the observation deck of the Galactic Council station. Admiral Junho Park stood with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the distant flicker of a dying sun through the reinforced glass. 47 years had passed since humanity first walked through these halls. 47 years of peace, cooperation, and what they believed was friendship. Ambassador Hannah Lee approached him quietly, her footsteps barely audible on the polished metal floor. She carried a datapad clutched against her chest, and her face was pale. Junho turned to look at her, and immediately knew something was terribly wrong. "We need to talk," Hannah whispered. "Somewhere private." They walked through the curved corridors of the station until they reached one of the human quarters. The door sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Hannah activated a privacy field and set her datapad on the table between them. Her hands were shaking. "I found something," she said. "Communications between council members. Encrypted, but our new AI managed to crack it." She touched the screen and files began to scroll past. "They're planning something, Junho. Something terrible." Commander Minho Choi entered the room moments later, summoned by Hannah's emergency signal. He was younger than both of them, sharp-eyed and quick-minded. He had served in the frontier wars and carried himself like a man who had seen what the galaxy could do to the unprepared. The three of them read through the files together. Each message was worse than the last. The Draxian representative, Councillor Vexter, had been coordinating with other council members for months. The communications spoke of humanity as a threat. They called humans dangerous. They said human technology advanced too quickly. They said human individuality made them unpredictable and impossible to control. "They're afraid of us," Minho said softly. "They've been afraid this whole time." Dr. Yuna Kim arrived last, called from her research lab in the science wing. As the chief xenobiologist, she had worked closely with dozens of alien species. She had considered many of them friends. Now she sat in silence, reading the same files, and her face showed only sadness. "There's a vote scheduled," Yuna said, pointing to a date on the screen. 3 days from now. Resolution 7749. It's listed as a standard quarantine protocol for biological contamination. "But there is no contamination," Anna said. "We've passed every health inspection for 47 years. "It's a cover," Junho said quietly. "They're going to use it to isolate us." The vote happened exactly as scheduled. The human delegation sat in their designated seats in the Grand Council chamber, surrounded by representatives from 300 worlds. The architecture was beautiful, designed to make every species feel included. Junho had once thought it represented the best of galactic civilization. High Chancellor Cole, an insectoid being from a world humanity had never visited, presided over the session. His translated voice echoed through the chamber as he presented Resolution 7749. The language was technical and dry. It spoke of contamination protocols and safety measures. It sounded reasonable. Ambassador Hannah Lee stood to speak against it. She presented evidence that no contamination existed. She showed health records spanning nearly 5 decades. She reminded the Council of everything humanity had contributed: the quantum computing networks that connected their worlds, the AI systems that managed their economies, the military strategies that had won the frontier wars. The Council voted anyway. Resolution 7749 passed with 287 votes in favor, 8 against, and 5 abstentions. All human-controlled systems will be placed under immediate quarantine, High Chancellor Call announced. No ships may enter or leave. This is for the safety of all council members. The chamber erupted in polite applause. Junho sat very still and watched them celebrate. Minho leaned close and whispered, "We need to leave, now." But it was already too late. The first reports came in within the hour. A human colony ship approaching the Orion Nebula had been fired upon by Council defense forces. The ship carried 15,000 civilians, mostly families relocating to the frontier colonies. It was destroyed with all hands. Then came worse news. Nova Terra, the largest human colony world with a population of 12 million, had been attacked by a Draxian fleet. They had bombarded the planet from orbit. Cities burned. The communication networks went dark one by one as the infrastructure was systematically destroyed. John Ho stood in the human embassy's command center and listened to the final transmission from Nova Terra. A voice, broken by static and terror, spoke of ships in the sky and fire falling like rain. Then there was only silence. 12 million people, Yuna said. She was crying, something John Ho had never seen before. 12 million. Armed Council security forces arrived at the embassy 2 hours later. They carried weapons designed to work in the station's atmosphere and wore armor that looked far too military for a diplomatic facility. Their leader, a Draxian soldier with scales the color of dried blood, presented an arrest warrant. The human delegation is charged with harboring and deploying weaponized biological agents, the soldier announced. You will come with us. This is insane, Hana said. There are no biological weapons. You know this is a lie. The council has voted, the soldier replied. You will comply or you will be subdued. Junho looked at Minho and gave him the smallest nod. They had planned for this possibility, though neither had truly believed it would happen. Minho's hand moved to his pocket where a small device waited. One press would activate protocols they had hoped never to use. The Draxian soldier noticed the movement. Stop, he commanded. Minho pressed the button. Every light in the embassy went dark. Emergency systems activated throughout the human section of the station. Bulkheads sealed. Airlocks opened and closed in a predetermined sequence. And in the chaos, Minho ran. He moved through corridors he had memorized, past security checkpoints that were now confused by the conflicting signals his device generated. He reached the docking bay where a small, fast ship waited. It was designed to look like a courier vessel, but carried engines that could outrun almost anything the Council had. Behind him, he could hear weapons fire. Shouts in languages he understood, and some he didn't. The Draxian security forces were pursuing him, but the station's automated systems were working against them, sealing doors and rerouting passages. Minho reached the ship and threw himself into the pilot's seat. The engines were already warming up, activated by the same signal that had started the chaos. He sealed the hatch and fired the thrusters in one smooth motion. The ship burst from the docking bay and into open space. Pursuit craft launched immediately, but Minho was already pushing the engines beyond their safety limits. The station fell away behind him, growing smaller against the stars. In his pocket, he carried a data chip. On that chip were all the files Hana had discovered, plus recordings of the council session and the attack orders that had destroyed Nova Terra, evidence of a conspiracy that spanned the entire Galactic Council. Proof that humanity's allies had always planned their destruction. As he jumped to faster-than-light speed, Minho thought about the people he had left behind. Junho, Hana, Yuna, and dozens of others in the embassy. He hoped they would survive long enough to be rescued. He hoped Earth could mount a rescue. But deep in his heart, he knew the truth. This wasn't a misunderstanding that could be resolved with diplomacy. This was extermination, planned and executed by those humanity had trusted. The galaxy had betrayed them. Now Earth needed to know, needed to prepare, needed to survive. Minho set course for home and prayed he would arrive in time. Commander Minho Choi's ship dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of Earth's solar system. Warning signals immediately flooded his communication systems. The entire system was on high alert. Defense satellites powered up and targeted his vessel before his identification codes could transmit. This is Commander Minho Choi, Earth Defense Force, returning from Council Station with priority intelligence. He broadcast on all frequencies. I repeat, priority intelligence regarding hostile action against human colonies. The response came within seconds. Commander Choi, you are cleared for direct approach to Defense Command. Military escort is inbound. 6 fighter craft appeared around his ship, their weapons still active, but no longer pointed at him. They guided him toward Earth, past the moon and its orbital defense platforms. Minho looked at the moon through his viewport and tried not to think about how vulnerable it looked. Director Hyen Nam was waiting when Minho landed. She was a small woman with iron-gray hair and eyes that had seen 3 wars. She ran Earth's Strategic Defense Initiative, a position that gave her more real power than most government officials. How bad? She asked, before Minho had even left the landing pad. 12 million dead at Nova Terra, Minho replied. The Council has declared quarantine on all human space. They're calling it contamination protocols, but it's a coordinated attack. I have proof. Hyen's face didn't change, but Minho saw her hands tighten on the datapad she carried. Come with me, she said. We have a lot to discuss. They walked deep into the facility, past security checkpoints that scanned for weapons, biological agents, and technology that didn't belong. Finally, they reached a conference room carved into bedrock hundreds of meters below the surface. The walls were lined with screens showing ship positions, resource allocations, and tactical maps. Engineer Daquan was already there, along with Captain Soman Kang and Lieutenant Jiwon Beek. They were the core of Earth's military leadership. The people who had been planning for the worst since humanity first made contact with the Council. Show them, Hyen said. Minho placed his data chip on the table. The files projected into the air above them, holographic evidence of betrayal. They watched in silence as Council members discussed the human problem and debated the best methods for elimination. They saw the attack orders for Nova Terra. They heard High Chancellor Call himself authorize the use of maximum force against civilian targets. When the last file finished playing, Daquan was the first to speak. They really did it, he said. After all these years, they actually did it. How long do we have? Someone asked. Her voice was steady, the tone of a professional soldier asking for tactical information. The Council fleet will reach Earth system within 48 hours, Jiwon said. She had been monitoring long-range sensors and updating her projections every few minutes. They're bringing enough ships to crack a planet. Then we activate Protocol Exodus, Hyen said. She touched her datapad and a new set of files appeared. Everyone in this room knew this might happen. We planned for it. Now we execute. The screens changed to show something Minho had never seen before. Ships. Hundreds of massive ships floating in the darkness beyond Neptune's orbit. They were enormous, each one the size of a small city. And they had been hidden there for decades. Project Horizon, Hyen explained. We started building these the moment we joined the Council. Every resource surplus we reported was understated. Every mining operation in the Kuiper Belt was cover for construction. We've been preparing for this since first contact. 300 ARC ships, they said. Each one capable of supporting 15 million people in cryosleep. With automated manufacturing facilities, quantum drives, and AI systems designed to continue research even while we sleep. You've been planning our evacuation for 47 years? Minho asked. We've been planning our survival, Hyen corrected. Hope for the best. Prepare for the worst. That's always been Earth's policy with the Council. The next 48 hours were chaos. Every human ship in near-Earth space received recall orders. Civilians were selected by lottery and location, chosen for genetic diversity and skill distribution. 4 billion people, nearly half of Earth's population, would be evacuated. The rest would have to take their chances with the automated defense network. Captain Soman Kang commanded the evacuation fleet. She stood on the bridge of the transport ship New Hope and coordinated the movement of thousands of vessels. Families were separated by lottery results. Children cried as they boarded ships without their parents. Adults volunteered to stay behind so that younger people could escape. Minho watched from a defense platform as the first ARC ships powered up their quantum drives. The energy signature was massive, visible even from thousands of kilometers away. One by one, the great ships vanished, jumping to coordinates beyond known space. Engineer Daquan worked frantically to bring Earth's final defenses online. The moon had been hollowed out over decades, filled with automated weapons platforms and manufacturing facilities. Asteroids throughout the solar system had been quietly armed with missile systems and energy weapons. It wouldn't be enough to win, but it might buy time for the ARC ships to escape. Lieutenant Jiwan Beek was flying reconnaissance missions to track the incoming Council fleet when she detected an unexpected signal. A small ship, traveling alone, broadcasting Council identification codes, but requesting permission to land. "This is Counselor Thren of the Avian Confederation," the transmission said. "I am seeking asylum with humanity. I have information about Council fleet movements and safe routes through their blockade." Jiwan escorted the ship to a secure landing facility. Counselor Thren emerged slowly, his feathered body showing signs of injury. He had voted against Resolution 7749, one of only 8 council members to do so. Now he was a fugitive. "I could not stand by and watch genocide," Thren said when they brought him to Director Hyan. "My people remember what it is like to be hunted. I will help however I can." The information Thren provided was invaluable. He showed them gaps in the Council's sensor network, routes through space that would avoid their patrol patterns. Soman immediately updated the ARC ship navigation systems with the new data. The Council fleet arrived exactly when Jiwan had predicted. 3,000 ships, representing dozens of species who had once called humanity their allies. They entered the solar system in a formation designed for overwhelming assault. Director Hyan activated Earth's defenses from the command bunker. The moon erupted with weapons fire, automated systems targeting the largest council ships. Hidden platforms throughout the asteroid belt opened fire simultaneously. The council had expected defenses, but not on this scale. The battle lasted 6 hours. Council ships died by the hundreds as Earth's automated weapons found their targets. But there were too many of them. Slowly, inevitably, they pushed forward. Minho watched from his fire as a Draxian dreadnought fired its main weapon at Earth's moon. The beam carved through rock and metal, destroying defensive positions that had taken decades to build. Secondary explosions lit up the lunar surface as ammunition depots and fusion reactors detonated. "The moon is breaking apart," someone reported over the communication network. "Structural integrity failing. All remaining personnel, evacuate to secondary positions," Hyan ordered. Her voice was calm, even as the world she had sworn to protect was being destroyed around her. The last ARC ships jumped to faster-than-light speed just as the moon shattered. Debris rained down on Earth, pieces of rock that had orbited the planet for billions of years now falling as weapons of destruction. Captain Soman Kang stood on the bridge of New Hope and watched Earth shrink in the viewscreen. She had 17 million people in cryosleep on her ship alone, and 300 more ships were scattered across space, all heading to coordinates in the void beyond charted territory. "Set course for the Terminus cluster," she ordered. "Maximum speed. And activate the long sleep protocols." One by one, the crew members entered their cryopods. Soman was the last to lie down. She sealed the pod and looked at the display showing estimated time to destination: 200 years. The automated systems would keep the ships running. The AI would continue researching, designing, improving. By the time they woke up, humanity would have advantages the Council couldn't imagine. Director Hyan remained on Earth with 10,000 volunteers. They broadcast a final message to the fleeing Ark ships and to the Council fleet alike. "We will remember," Hyan said. Her image was transmitted across every frequency, her face showing no fear. "Remember what you did here. Remember the people you killed. Because we will remember. And one day, we will return." The Council fleet bombarded Earth for 3 more days, until the defense network finally fell silent. They left the planet burning and declared the human threat eliminated. High Chancellor Call issued a statement to all Council members. The contamination has been purged. The galaxy is safe. But in the darkness beyond the galactic rim, 300 Ark ships continued their journey. 4 billion humans slept and dreamed of home. And the automated systems worked tirelessly, building the weapons that would one day bring them back. Fleet Admiral Taiyang Xin opened his eyes to darkness. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was or why his body felt so heavy. Then, the cryopod systems hummed to life around him, and memory flooded back. Earth, the Council, the evacuation, the long sleep. 200 years. He had been asleep for 200 years. The pod opened with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Taiyang sat up slowly, his muscles protesting after centuries of stillness. Medical scanners played over his body, checking vital signs and administering stimulants to speed his recovery. Around him, other pods were opening. Other people were waking up. "Welcome back, Admiral," a synthetic voice said. "We have arrived at the Terminus cluster. All systems are functioning normally. The awakening sequence is proceeding as planned." Taiyang stood on shaking legs and walked to the nearest viewport. What he saw took his breath away. Ships. Thousands upon thousands of ships, spread across space in a formation that looked like a mechanical galaxy. The 300 Ark ships they had started with were still there, but now they were surrounded by construction facilities, manufacturing platforms and vessels of designs he had never seen before. "How many?" he asked the AI. Current fleet composition includes 50,000 combat vessels, 300 colony ships, and support craft numbering approximately 200,000. The AI replied. Manufacturing facilities continue production at optimal rates. Chief Scientist Yoonji Song found him at the viewport an hour later. She was younger than him, had been only 25 when they entered cryosleep. Now she was technically 225 years old, though her body had aged only a few hours. "The AI kept working while we slept," Yoonji explained. She pulled up holographic displays showing technological developments that spanned 2 centuries. It researched. It experimented. It built. Everything we hoped would happen did happen. The technology was incredible. Phase shift shields that could make a ship partially intangible, allowing enemy weapons to pass harmlessly through. Singularity weapons that could compress matter into temporary black holes. Neural networks that connected every ship in the fleet, allowing them to fight as one coordinated organism. "We're not the same people who ran from Earth," Taiyang said quietly. "No," Yoonji agreed. "We're much more dangerous now." Over the next weeks, the entire human population woke from cryosleep. 18 billion people emerged from the Ark ships, more than 4 times the number that had fled Earth. The automated gestation programs had worked perfectly, creating new generations even while the original evacuees slept. General Se-Wuhan was among those who had been born during the journey. He had grown to adulthood in accelerated learning programs, taught by AI instructors and virtual simulations. He had never seen Earth except in recordings, but he carried the memory of its destruction like a personal wound. "What are your orders, Admiral?" Siwu asked. He commanded the ground forces, soldiers who had trained their entire lives for a war that was 200 years old. "First, we need information," Taiyang said. "We need to know what the galaxy looks like now. What happened to the Council? Whether Earth still exists." Captain Minjio volunteered to lead the reconnaissance mission. She commanded the Retribution, an experimental warship that combined all of humanity's new technology into one deadly package. The ship could phase through solid matter, generate singularity weapons, and move faster than anything the old Council fleet could match. "Take 3 ships," Taiyang ordered. "Stay hidden. Observe only. We need to understand what we're facing before we act." Minji's small fleet jumped to the edge of known space and began a careful approach toward what had been Council territory. They moved slowly, using passive sensors to map the area. What they found was disturbing. The Galactic Council still existed, but it had changed. The Draxian Empire now dominated the other species, turning what had been a confederation into something closer to a dictatorship. Worlds that had voted against Council policy were now occupied. Species that had resisted were enslaved. "It's worse than we thought," Minji reported back to the Terminus cluster. "The Council we ran from was corrupt. The Council that exists now is tyrannical." They were preparing to return to Terminus when they detected a damaged ship broadcasting an emergency signal. The vessel was small, barely capable of faster-than-light travel, and it was being pursued by Council patrol craft. "Should we intervene?" Minji's tactical officer asked. "What kind of ship is it?" Minji asked. "Reading avian design patterns. Old technology. Possibly civilian." Minji made a decision that would change everything. "Battle stations. Prepare to engage." The Retribution dropped out of stealth mode directly between the fleeing ship and its pursuers. The Council patrol craft had no time to react before phase shift torpedoes tore through their hulls. In 40 seconds, 3 Council ships were destroyed without ever understanding what had killed them. The damaged avian ship sent a cautious hail. "Unknown vessel, this is Councilor Thren requesting identification." "Are you human?" Minji felt a chill run down her spine. "Councilor Thren? The Thren who helped evacuate Earth? You know of me?" The old avian's voice was filled with surprise. "How long have I been searching for you?" They brought Thren aboard the Retribution and gave him medical treatment. He was ancient now, his feathers gray with age. But his mind was still sharp, and the information he carried was invaluable. "I have spent 2 centuries trying to find you," Thren said. "I knew you must have survived. I knew you would return someday. The Council believes you extinct, but I never stopped looking." He showed them star charts marking Council military positions. He provided access codes to communication networks. He detailed the internal politics of the Council, the species that supported Draxian rule and those that secretly opposed it. "Many species remember what was done to humanity," Thren said. "Many know it was wrong, but they are afraid. The Draxian Empire crushes any resistance without mercy." Captain Minji-O brought Thren back to Terminus Cluster, where Fleet Admiral Taiyang Xin called a grand assembly. Every human settlement sent representatives. The chamber they gathered in was enormous, carved from an asteroid and capable of holding 100,000 people. Taiyang stood at the center and addressed his people. 200 years ago, the Galactic Council tried to destroy us. They killed billions. They burned Earth. They hunted us across the stars. His voice echoed through the chamber. "Now we must decide who we are. Are we the victims who ran? Or are we the survivors who return?" General Siwuhan spoke next. "I propose we send reconnaissance forces throughout Council space. Map their defenses. Assess their strength. Learn everything we can before we reveal ourselves." "I volunteer to lead those missions," Captain Minji-O said. "The Retribution is designed for exactly this kind of operation. Chief Scientist Eun Song displayed holographic projections of Council military capabilities compared to human technology. We have advantages they cannot match. Our ships are faster, our weapons more powerful, our tactics more flexible. But they have numbers. Thousands of worlds. Millions of ships. Councillor Thren addressed the assembly, his translator rendering his words into human speech. I beg you to consider carefully. The council I once served is dead. What exists now is a machine of oppression. Many species suffer under Draxian rule. If you return seeking only revenge, you will become what they feared you would be. But if you return offering liberation, you could change the galaxy. The debate lasted for days. Some wanted immediate war. Others urged caution. A few even suggested remaining hidden, building a new civilization in the Terminus cluster and forgetting the council entirely. In the end, they voted. The decision was nearly unanimous. Humanity would return to council space, but they would not announce themselves. They would not send diplomats or peace delegations. They would strike from the shadows, dismantling council military power piece by piece, until the galaxy understood that humanity had survived and evolved. We are not conquerors, Taiyang announced when the vote was complete. We are not exterminators, but we are also not victims anymore. We will return. We will show them what we have become, and we will make them remember what they did. The first wave of ships departed Terminus that same day. 50 warships, painted black to blend with space. Each one carrying a message painted on their hulls in letters large enough to be seen from orbit. We remember. Captain Mingio led them toward council space, her fleet moving in perfect coordination through the darkness. Behind them, the rest of humanity prepared for war. Construction facilities worked at maximum capacity. Soldiers trained in tactics that combined 200 years of AI research with human creativity. Scientists developed weapons that would have seemed like magic to the council that had betrayed them. In a secret facility deep within an asteroid, intelligence officer Ji-Hoon Lee worked with a team of cyber warfare specialists. They had spent their entire lives studying council computer systems, learning every vulnerability, preparing viruses that could spread through the galactic network like wildfire. When the time comes, Ji-Hoon told his team, we will own their communications. We will control their sensors. We will make them blind and deaf while we dismantle everything they built. Wing Commander Bora Park trained her starfighter pilots in the newest craft humanity had developed. Ships so fast they could, the first council supply depot vanished on a Tuesday. One moment it was there, a massive orbital facility storing weapons and fuel for a dozen military bases. The next moment, sensors showed only empty space and debris drifting in the void. The Draxian commander who investigated found no evidence of what had happened. No weapon signatures. No ship trails. No survivors to question. The depot had simply ceased to exist, along with its 3,000 personnel. Structural failure, the official report concluded. Poor maintenance of critical systems. 2 days later, a council patrol fleet disappeared. 15 ships were conducting routine sweeps through the outer territories when they stopped responding to communications. Search and rescue teams found the ships floating dead in space, their crews gone, their computers wiped clean. Possible biological contamination, the council announced. All ships in the area should increase health monitoring protocols. Captain Mingio watched the council's public responses from the bridge of the Retribution and smiled. They didn't understand yet. They were still making excuses, still trying to explain away the impossible. Target the communications relay in Sector 7, she ordered. Make it look like a meteor strike. The Retribution fired a single kinetic projectile at a fraction of the speed of light. It hit the relay station with the force of a small nuclear weapon, but sensors would only detect natural space debris. The station exploded, taking with it the communications network for 3 star systems. Intelligence officer Ji-Hoon Lee worked from a stealth ship positioned near a major council hub world. His team had been infiltrating council networks for weeks, planting viruses in their communication systems, copying classified data, and preparing for a massive coordinated strike. "We own their computers now," Ji-Hoon reported to Fleet Admiral Taeyang Shin. "Every major military database, every sensor network, every automated defense platform. When you give the word, we can shut them all down." Wing Commander Bora Park led her starfighter squadrons on raids deep into Council territory. They would appear without warning at isolated military installations, destroy everything of value, and vanish before reinforcements could arrive. They left no survivors. They took no prisoners. "Remember Nova Terra," Bora told her pilots before each mission. "Remember Earth. Remember the 12 million. The attacks continued for months. The Council tried to respond, but they were fighting an enemy they couldn't see. Human ships used phase shift technology to avoid detection. They struck with weapons the Council couldn't defend against. And they seemed to know exactly where to hit for maximum damage." Panic began to spread through Council space. Merchants refused to travel certain routes. Military outposts requested additional defenses. Species that had been loyal to the Draxian Empire started questioning whether their safety could be guaranteed. General Siwoo-han established forward operating bases in asteroid fields and nebulae throughout Council territory. Each base was completely hidden, protected by stealth technology, and supplied by ships that left no trail. From these bases, human forces could strike anywhere in the galaxy within hours. "We're not just attacking them," Siwoo explained to his officers. "We're making them afraid. Fear is a weapon more powerful than any bomb." A Draxian battle group was sent to investigate the mysterious attacks. 25 warships, including 3 dreadnoughts, entered a region where 5 Council facilities had been destroyed. They deployed sensor drones, established defensive formations, and prepared to face whatever threat had been haunting their space. They lasted 47 seconds. Human ships dropped out of phase shift directly among the Draxian formation. Singularity weapons tore through shields that were designed to stop conventional fire. Neural network targeting systems coordinated strikes with inhuman precision. The Draxian fleet was annihilated before they could even identify their attackers. One ship survived long enough to broadcast a partial message. "Unknown vessels using impossible technology. We cannot." Then that ship too was destroyed, and silence returned to the void. High Chancellor Call received the report in his office on the Council Central Station. He was old now, his insectoid body showing signs of age that his species rarely lived to experience. He had ruled the Council for over 200 years, and in all that time, he had never felt fear like this. "Impossible," he said, watching the fragmentary data from the Draxian battle group. "This technology, it cannot exist." His military advisors had no explanation. The attacking ships had appeared on sensors for only seconds. The weapons they used operated on principles that seemed to violate physics. And most disturbing of all, the tactics were somehow familiar. "Pull up the files on the human extermination," Call ordered. The data appeared on holographic displays. Records from 200 years ago, detailing the quarantine and elimination of the human species. Fleet compositions, battle reports, casualty figures. Call compared the old human tactics to what little they knew about the new attackers. The patterns were similar. The aggression was identical. The preference for overwhelming force applied with surgical precision. "It cannot be them," Call said. "We destroyed them. We watched their planet burn." But doubt had taken root in his mind. He ordered a complete review of all data from the human extermination. Teams of analysts worked around the clock, examining sensor logs from Earth's final battle and comparing them to recent attack patterns. 3 weeks later, they found it. A sensor ghost, barely visible in the data from Earth's last stand. 300 large vessels had jumped to faster-than-light speed in the final hours of the battle. The signatures had been dismissed at the time as sensor errors caused by all the weapons' fire and explosions. They escaped, one analyst said quietly. Some of them got away. Captain Minji knew the council was starting to understand. Her intelligence reports showed increased analysis of the attacks, more resources devoted to investigating the mysterious enemy. It was time to remove all doubt. She approached a council communication relay, one of the major hubs that connected dozens of star systems. Instead of destroying it, she captured it intact. Her cyber warfare team took control of the station in minutes, locking out council operators and seizing access to the entire network. Then she broadcast something the council had tried to erase from history. Surveillance footage from Nova Terra, the Draxian fleet in orbit. The bombardment beginning. Cities burning. People dying by the millions. And overlaid on the video, a simple message. We remember. The broadcast went out on every frequency, to every world connected to that relay. Billions of beings across dozens of species watched the footage and saw what the council had done 2 centuries ago. They saw evidence of genocide committed against a species that had been their ally. And when the video ended, another message appeared. Just a list of names. 12 million names, scrolling past faster than anyone could read them individually. Every person who had died at Nova Terra, High Chancellor Call, watched the broadcast and felt his carefully constructed narrative crumbling. For 200 years, the Council had maintained that humanity was dangerous, that their elimination was necessary. Now evidence of the truth was spreading across the galaxy. His communication systems lit up with incoming calls. Species demanding explanations. Worlds threatening to withdraw from the Council. Military commanders reporting that their own crews were questioning orders. Counselor Vester, the Draxian who had orchestrated the original conspiracy, contacted Call privately. We need to control this situation immediately. Deploy all available forces. Find the humans and finish what we started. With what? Call asked. They have technology we cannot match. They appear and disappear at will. And now the entire galaxy knows what we did. Then, we make them understand why we did it, Baxter said. We show everyone that humans are dangerous. We prove we were right to fear them. But it was too late for that strategy. The next broadcast from the mysterious human forces included something even more damaging. Classified. Council communications from 200 years ago. The messages showing how the genocide had been planned. The discussions of humanity as a threat to be eliminated. The cold calculation of how many millions would need to die. Multiple council member species announced they were withdrawing from the alliance. 3 worlds declared independence outright. And somewhere in the chaos, quiet messages began circulating among the oppressed species. The humans were coming back, and they might be the galaxy's salvation rather than its doom. Intelligence Officer Ji-Hoon Lee monitored the response to their information warfare campaign. Public opinion is shifting, he reported. 60% of surveyed populations now view the Council's actions against humanity as unjustified genocide. Support for the Draxian Empire is collapsing. Good, Fleet Admiral Taiyang Xin said. But we're not done yet. He authorized the next phase of the operation. Human ships began appearing in Council space openly, no longer hiding in stealth. They didn't attack immediately. They simply appeared, positioned themselves in orbit around major worlds, and waited. Each ship carried the same message painted on its hull. We remember. Do you? The psychological impact was devastating. Council worlds watch. The human armada arrived at Draxis Prime exactly when promised. 50,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light speed in perfect formation, surrounding the Draxian homeworld in a sphere of military might that had never been seen in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Taiyang Xin stood on the bridge of his flagship and looked at the planet below. It was beautiful in a way that made his heart ache. Green continents, blue oceans, white clouds. It looked almost like Earth must have looked before the Council destroyed it. "All ships reporting ready, Admiral," his tactical officer reported. "Weapons armed and targeting solutions locked. We can end this in minutes." "I know," Taiyang said quietly. "But we wait." The Draxian defense fleet moved to intercept. 3,000 ships, representing the military might of an empire that had dominated the galaxy for centuries. They formed defensive lines around their homeworld and opened communication channels. "Unknown fleet, this is Defense Commander Kalsith of the Draxian Empire. You are in violation of Council space. Withdraw immediately or face destruction." Captain Mingio responded from the Retribution. "This is the Human Expeditionary Force. We are not unknown to you. 200 years ago, you attempted to exterminate our species. We survived. Now we are here to deliver justice." The Draxian fleet opened fire. Energy beams and missile barrages filled the space between the two forces. Thousands of weapons discharging simultaneously in a display of firepower meant to intimidate any opponent. The human ships activated their phase shift shields. The Draxian weapons passed through them harmlessly, as if they were shooting at ghosts. "Return fire," Taiyang ordered. "Disable only. No killing shots." The human fleet responded with surgical precision. Singularity weapons targeted the Draxian ship's engines and weapon systems, leaving their life support and crew compartments intact. Within minutes, the entire Draken defense fleet was crippled and drifting. "This is impossible," Commander Kalsith broadcast. "What kind of weapons are these?" "The kind that 200 years of survival and hatred can create," Minji replied. "But we are not here to destroy you." "Not yet." General Siwuhan led ground forces to Council government centers throughout Draxian territory. His soldiers moved like ghosts through defensive positions, their armor equipped with the same phase shift technology as the ships. They captured government officials and military leaders without firing a single shot that endangered civilians. Intelligence officer Ji-Hoon Lee activated the cyber warfare systems he had spent months preparing. Every Council military computer, every defense satellite, every automated weapon platform suddenly shut down or reported false data. The Council's technological infrastructure was completely compromised. High Chancellor Cole tried to activate the ancient superweapons that the Council kept hidden for emergencies. Devices from wars fought millennia ago, powerful enough to crack planets. He entered the activation codes personally, his hands shaking as he worked the controls. Nothing happened. "The weapons are offline," his technician reported. "All of them." The systems showed they were disabled months ago. Ji-Hoon Lee's voice came through the communication system. "We've been inside your network since we returned, Chancellor. Did you really think we would leave you any weapons to use against us?" Wing Commander Boropark led her fighter squadrons in a demonstration flight over the Draxian capital city. They flew in perfect formation, their ships creating patterns in the sky that spelled out messages in multiple languages. "We remember. 12 million. Nova Terra." The Draxian civilians watched from below, seeing for the first time the face of the species their government had tried to destroy. They saw the power of the human fleet. They understood that their leaders had failed to eliminate a threat that had returned stronger than ever. Fleet Admiral Taiyang Xin prepared to broadcast to the entire galaxy. Every communication network, every news service, every public information system received the signal. Billions of beings across hundreds of worlds tuned in to hear what humanity would say. Taiyang appeared on screens everywhere. Behind him, the human fleet held position around Draxus Prime, weapons ready but not firing. He wore a simple military uniform, no decorations except for one small patch showing the blue and globe of Earth. 200 years ago, Taiyang began. The Galactic Council decided that humanity was too dangerous to exist. They fabricated evidence of biological weapons. They passed a resolution that gave them legal cover for genocide. And then they tried to kill us all. Holographic displays showed the footage that had been broadcast weeks earlier. Nova Terra burning. Earth's moon shattering. The evacuation ships fleeing into deep space. 12 million people died at Nova Terra. 3 billion more died defending Earth. They were parents and children, scientists and artists, soldiers and civilians. They were murdered because the Council feared what humans might become. Taiyang's voice was steady, but those watching could see the grief in his eyes. The Council failed. We survived. And in our survival, we became exactly what they feared. We built weapons that can destroy planets. We created technology that makes us invincible. We evolved into something that could wipe the Council from existence. The camera pulled back to show the massive fleet surrounding Draxus Prime. Every ship's weapons were clearly visible, all of them pointing at the planet below. We have that power now. We could end the Draxian Empire in minutes. We could burn this world the way you burned ours. We could show you the same mercy you showed our children. Taiyang paused, and in that pause, the galaxy held its breath. But we won't. Councillor Vexthor was brought before Taiyang in chains. The old Draxian had been the architect of humanity's attempted destruction, the one who had convinced the Council that genocide was necessary. He looked at the human admiral with hatred in his eyes. "You should kill me," Vexthor said. "It is what I would do." "I know," Taiyang replied. "That's the difference between us." He turned to address the broadcast again, making sure every being in the galaxy could see and hear what came next. "We are establishing tribunals to try those responsible for crimes against humanity. We have evidence of who gave the orders, who planned the attacks, who pulled the triggers. They will face justice under laws recognized throughout the galaxy." General Suohan transmitted the list of names. Hundreds of council officials and military leaders who would stand trial for genocide. High Chancellor Cole's name was at the top of the list. "The Galactic Council as it exists is dissolved," Taiyang announced. "Any species that wishes to be part of a new galactic community must agree to these terms. No genocide, no slavery, no conquest. Democratic representation for all member species. And humans will serve as peacekeepers to ensure these laws are followed." "You cannot do this," High Chancellor Cole protested from his holding cell. "You cannot impose your will on the entire galaxy." "Watch us," Captain Minji O replied. The human fleet began enforcing the new order immediately. Occupied worlds were liberated. Enslaved species were freed. Council military forces that resisted were disabled and captured. Those that surrendered were treated fairly and allowed to return home unarmed. Chief Scientist Yoonji Song worked with representatives from dozens species to establish the new government structure. It would be called the Concordat of Free Worlds, and every species would have an equal voice regardless of military power or economic strength. Councillor Thren, the avian who had helped humanity escape 2 centuries earlier, was appointed as one of the first ambassadors of the new Concordat. He stood beside Taiyang at the signing ceremony and spoke to the assembled representatives. 200 years ago, I voted against the resolution that condemned humanity to death, Thren said. I knew it was wrong, but I was too weak to do more than vote. I let fear guide me instead of conscience. He looked at the human delegation with eyes that held deep sadness. Humanity had every right to return seeking vengeance. Instead, They returned offering the galaxy a chance at redemption. We do not deserve this mercy, but I pray we are wise enough to accept it. The trials began on a neutral world chosen by the new Concordat. High Chancellor Call and Counselor Vexter were the first to face judgment. They sat in a courtroom surrounded by representatives from every species, human and alien alike. The evidence was presented methodically. Communications showing the conspiracy. Attack orders that targeted civilians. Recordings of the Nova Terra bombardment. Testimony from survivors who had lost everything. Counselor Vexter showed no remorse. We did what was necessary, he insisted. Humanity was a threat. We were allies, General Siwuhan said from the witness stand. We fought beside you in the frontier wars. We shared our technology. We trusted you. He leaned forward, his voice hard. And you repaid that trust with genocide. High Chancellor Call tried to justify his actions. The council voted. I was following democratic processes. Democracy does not give you permission to commit murder, Taiyang replied. You knew it was wrong. You did it anyway. The tribunal delivered its verdict after 3 weeks of testimony. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was not death, despite the enormity of their crimes. Instead, Vexter and Call would spend the rest of their lives working to rebuild what they had destroyed. You will witness the construction of every memorial to the species you.